Okay, so welcome to my first episode of Truth Be Told with Natasha Wenzel. It's great to have everyone here. I'm really excited. So attention shouldn't be focused too much on where I come from and how I've ended up here. Not at this stage anyway. The reason being, the show is not about me, it's about the truth. So Google says that truth is the quality or state of being true. Oxford Dictionary describes it as the true facts about something rather than the things that have been invented or guessed. Webster's Dictionary states conformity to fact or reality, the exact accordance, conformity or agreement with that which is or has been or shall be. The truth of history constitutes its whole value. Now, it's really important that you guys listen to what I've just said to you, because this is what we've been basically put out to believe are actually based on truth. This is what truth is to us. So truth is usually held to be the opposite of falsehood. The concept of truth is discussed and debated in various contexts. We know this through philosophy, through art, through theology, and through science. Most human activities depend upon this concept, where its nature as a concept is assumed rather than being a subject of discussion. These include most of the sciences, law, journalism, and everyday life. For example, we've always been told that milk gives us strong bones and strong teeth. This is what we've been told by our parents, and they've been told by their parents. So we've assumed that this information is truth. This has been predetermined and predefined. Most commonly, truth is viewed as the correspondence of language or thought to a mind-independent world. And this is called the correspondence of theory of truth. Now, the correspondence theory of truth states that the truth of falsity of a statement is determined only by how it relates to the world and whether it accurately describes correspondence with that world. So, currently, we are living in a pandemic. That is the truth. And that is what happened in March 2019, generally speaking. Now, correspondence theories claim that true beliefs and true statements correspond to the actual state of affairs. This type of theory attempts to posit a relationship between thoughts or statements on one hand and things or facts on the other hand. But now we've reached a pivotal moment in history where the concept of what has been presented to us, the way statements relate to the world, is no longer just accepted. It's just not adding up. It's not corresponding. As it is stated in the Oxford Webster's Dictionary, we conform, we agree, but this is no longer the case, as we are now looking at the state of affairs, and we are weighing up the thoughts and statements on one hand against the things and facts on the other hand. And now we are asking questions. Our truth is now becoming our classroom. Are we in a pandemic? What is a pandemic? Has the theory, the description, the actual basis of what a pandemic truly is, has that changed? Has it evolved? What is truly going on? This is where we are now in January 2022. We no longer just accept what we are told, but rather through this process of corresponding the theories of truth, our blackboard is being filled with new avenues of possibilities. As humans, we are hungry for information. We are hungry for truth. We need to know. So when I mention that truth is different for everybody, it's a stage of discovery that we all need to learn from one another. We need to come together. We need to assist one another. We need to share the information. We need to grow. We need to unify. We are infants in this new normal. Now, instead of cringing when you hear these statements such as new normal, build back better, the great reset, and so on, we should wear these as war paints. This is our new normal, because we all have this new information available to us, and we have the opportunity to find the truth. Build back better, absolutely. Have we ever been this unified as a nation? Have we ever been this unified as a world globally? And the great reset of our souls, of our consciousness, and of our sovereignty. It is how we use the words that we are being flooded with. Don't drown in the endless propaganda. There are many lifeboats, and all you have to do is reach out. You are not alone. And for those who are still splashing in the waters, it is simply because people sometimes don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions to be destroyed. And that's okay. So, join me on the show as we explore together truths about subjects that you might at times not find particularly comfortable, but we need answers. I would love to share with you as much as I can. Please keep in mind that some of my wording will be in code format for obvious reasons. And if you're not sure what I'm referring to, you're welcome to pop me a message and I will gladly assist. As I've mentioned on all of my other platforms, you can contact me with ideas and questions. And if you'd be so kind as to like, share, and subscribe. Right, so let's get going. This past Monday, 24th of January, Senator Ron Johnson of the United States of America held a forum with a very interesting guest list. Talk is labeled as CV19 Second Opinion. It was a panel discussion on the global pandemic response, what went right, what went wrong, what should be done now, and what needs to be addressed long term. The panel will also discuss censorship from big tech and the mainstream media, pandemic response effect on children, and PROD, mandate impact on work shortages. Now, you might ask, why am I focusing on the United States of America if we are in South Africa? Well, it's simple, and I have mentioned this before. We are very limited in South Africa with regards to data. In short, even though it is stated in the Bill of Rights, Section 32 of the Constitution, everyone has the right to access any information held by the state and any information that is held by another person, and that is required for the exercise of protection of any rights. So huge amounts of data have been withheld from us. We know this. With saying that, incorrect data has also been supplied to us, fed to us through mainstream media. And this has been fed to us, and even though it has caused fear-mongering, many of the people that's so-called on the right side have been, on numerous occasions, been told that they are the ones pushing fear-mongering. Yet, is that not what mainstream media has been doing? So, how can I prove this? I suppose I can't, but just as I suppose I can't prove this, there are many mainstream media sources that can't prove this either, so it's questionable. Now, Dr. John Campbell did a lovely little presentation on the 20th of January on some data that was released in the United Kingdom, so I'm jumping continents again. Now, to me, this proves that data tends to be released incorrectly, but this again is not about me. So here's the information briefly, and you can decide for yourself. The report came out last month, and it has not been mentioned on mainstream media. Deaths within 28 days of positive CV tests, 2020 to September 2021. Daily, there has been 359. The total has been 152,872. Deaths with CV19 on death certificates for 2020 to September 2021. Daily, it's been 640, and the total has been 174,233. Now, those numbers seem to be quite high. Those numbers, if I had to see those numbers on a day-to-day basis, it would scare the bajingas out of me. It would definitely harbor onto fear-mongering. That would cause me to run down to the nearest clinic to go and get that product jabbed into my arm, if I didn't know any better. However, there's more information. Deaths from CV19 with no underlying causes, as per the Freedom of Information Database report. Now, this is where the interesting part comes in. Because if you look, they've again taken the data from 2020 to September 2021. 2020, 9,400. Only 9,400. It gets more interesting. if you look at 0 to 64, you are looking at 1,549 people. 65 years and over is 7,851 people. The average age, 85.1 years. Then for the first quarter of 2021, first quarter, 6,483. 0 to 64 years is 1,560. 65 years and over is 4,923. Again, the average age is only 85.1. Second quarter of 2021, 346. 0 to 64 is 153 people. 65 years and over is 193 people. 2021, third quarter, 1,142. 0 to 64 people is 512. 65 and over is 630. So, the only deaths from CV19 for the period of 2020 to 2021 September with no underlying conditions. Now, keep in mind, that's no diabetes, that's no heart problems or blood clotting, thrombosis, or anything like that. So, if you are basically healthy and you are not aware of any underlying conditions that you might have, then you are looking at deaths for that period of time of 17,371. That's it. Now, please, I'm not downplaying it. I'm not saying that 17,371 deaths are not important, because those are still lives. That's not just a number. Those are still lives. And I'm definitely going to get back to that, because that can definitely have been prevented with early treatment. And there's a whole section on that that's coming. However, the numbers that's been pushed by mainstream media, those numbers, you are looking at 152,000 and 174,000. That's what they're pushing in mainstream media, instead of the 17,371, of which 13,597 were people 65 years and over, and only 3,774 were people 65 years and under. Now again, what is their truth? What is my truth? And what is the actual truth? It is all relative to the state of affairs. It's all relative to the state of affairs. Because what is being put out as truth, what is supposed to be hand in hand with what is happening currently in the world, and what is seen as the accepted truth, the narrative truth, the push truth, that is what is supposed to be true. That is what Oxford says. That is what Webster's dictionary says. That's even what Google says. So we are meant to just accept that. That's what we are supposed to go with. But now we are asking questions. And why are we asking questions? Because information is starting to come up everywhere that's just not lining up any longer. And people are now starting to ask questions. They're now starting to want to know more. They're starting to go, the buck stops here. Something is just not right. And just a little note, the average age of death in the whole of the UK for CV19 in 2021 is actually 82.5. So if this type of selective data applies to the United Kingdom, surely it could apply to other areas of the world. Do you really want to tell me that South Africa is giving us the correct numbers, considering that they are withholding so much data from us, considering we have to tap into other continents, into other countries like the United States of America, like the United Kingdom, like Israel, like other European countries, just to get information so that we can figure out what is actually happening out there. Because no one's going to tell us. No one wants to tell us. We got to kind of figure it out for ourselves. Okay, moving on. So it's therefore left me to rely on global information to paint a global picture. Don't be disheartened though. South Africa's got more than enough information for me to cover, so they're always in my peripheral view. But let's get back to the senator. So he's an interesting fellow, and in a nutshell, I have not looked into him extensively. Am I interested? No. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's the content that matters, not the chair. Briefly, however, he is running for midterm elections in November, and as per some left articles, they reckon that he's trying to gain some additional rights supporters by spreading loads of misinformation. They had it fact checked like you would not believe, and I urge you to go and have a look at what some of the articles are actually saying. Is he popular? He is popular, but not for reasons that many people would actually like. At this stage, he's making headlines with regards to child tax credits. And what that basically boils down to is that he feels that the United States of America, the people from the United States, that they should not depend on additional grants from the state in order to stay at home and look after their children, but instead should be going to work. And that the kids should be going to school, or alternatively should be going to daycare or teaching programs, etc., after school. Now, I see that as a bit of an old school look. I have to kind of agree with him, because as soon as you start handing out grants left, right, and center, you kind of end up with a country that just becomes very dependent on grants. And I might be hinting towards certain countries, but again, this show is not about me, is it? Okay, so have I dived any deeper into with regards to his art collection or where he goes to holiday? No, I have not. But what I do know is that he was not on Epstein's logbook, and that to me is a very good start. Okay, let's have a look at the guest list of the forum from Monday. So we had medical experts and doctors there, and this was an absolutely amazing panel of doctors. Dr. Peter McCullough was there, Dr. Brett Weinstein, Dr. Ryan Cole, Dr. Harvey Rich, Dr. George Farid, Dr. Pierre Corey, Richard Osso, Dr. Paul Marick, Dr. Aaron Kiriati, Dr. Robert Malone, and Dr. David Wiseman. Now, in addition to these doctors, the senator also extended an invitation to some federal health agencies, some CEOs of the P company and the M company, and some other individuals also that led and developed and promoted, the response to the pandemic over the last 2 years. Some of these people were, like Dr. Rochelle Walensky, Dr. Janet Woodcock, and then, of course, Dr. Anthony Fauci. There were a whole bunch of other people as well, CEOs and professors and former commissioner of the US FDA, but they reluctantly declined the invitation. So they weren't there. Now, if you have a look at the guest list, we are referring to doctors like Dr. P. McCullough, Dr. Malone, and then Dr. Cole. Dr. Cole, you will know as the doctor that right in the beginning, there was this doctor from the White Coat Summit. He did this amazing presentation on stage with regards to what happens to the blood cells when you take the product. It was circulating everywhere. It was actually quite a breakthrough video at the time, and it kind of backed up one of our local doctors in South Africa when her blood slides came out. This is also a local doctor that was then interviewed by Stu Peters at a later stage. I'm sure you know who I'm speaking about. So this is who Dr. Cole is. He's also a leading doctor with regards to information with regards to cancer patients and how cancer patients have actually been neglected with the whole pandemic that we've been going through. So he's very well known and very well received. Okay, well, he was very well received. So these doctors have dedicated their lives to their profession. Now, I'd like you to really listen to this part. The truth pre-CV was that they were highly esteemed in their fields. They were very much sought after. They were leaders in their areas. They were consulted by top organizations, treated magnitudes of patients. So when the actual state of affairs rang a certain way, which was charmed by a certain group of people, these men were nothing short of heroic. The truth was that you could push on their button and information would spew out. The truth that would bubble to the surface would literally be life-saving. It would be seen as elixir. Now they are wearing scarlet letters. They've been banned on platforms. They are made out to be nothing short of a couple of earless Van Goghs before his D-date. You search for previous articles, ones where they used to be kings and seen as kings, and all that you find are tarnished, tabloid-styled columns about spreading misinformation and being far-fetched and not basing any of their findings on science, but on these crazy, ridiculous, far-fetched, right myths and guesses stemming from anti-Xers and people who just don't have it all together. Their elixir has now become murky and bitter, spat out by the truth pushers of the world. And the world is swallowing this up. They now mean nothing. And what's really interesting to me is that exactly the same is happening in South Africa. Exactly the same has happened in South Africa. Doctors who have treated patients, doctors who have done heart surgery, who have saved people's lives, who have saved children from death, who has held parents' hands and promised them, I will save your child's life. And they have, are now being crucified, are now wearing scarlet letters, are now being ridiculed and made out to be these crazies. The truth has now changed. The truth has been twisted. Oxford Dictionary tells us that we need to conform, we need to agree. And that's what's happened. As soon as the shoe drops, opinions are just put on like a coat. It's just changed because we are told to. People's lives are destroyed. These people's lives have been destroyed. Not just in the United States of America, not just in the United Kingdom, but in South Africa. So it's no surprise that 80% of the guests, which did not just include doctors mentioned above, raised their hands to indicate that they were also censored, ridiculed, intimidated, and had endured extensive damage in their lives because they advocated for people only to help, only to stand up for their truth, for their truth. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that many of us have endured. Again, we are torn between these worlds of truth. The world's truth and a truth that is now starting to surface daily. Information is coming out. So we've seen this happen to many of our local doctors. We've had doctors who have spoken out on Zoom calls. Lives have been pretty much destroyed. We've had doctors who've written letters to the president, sadly, have still not received a response. We've had doctors who have used effective medication, which is frowned upon by the powers that be, even though the recovery rates of those doctors' patients have been absolutely astonishing. And this is not just in South Africa. On this platform, Dr. Pia Corey, who's an expert on IVMT, He mentioned that in the United States of America, they can't use that product. They can't use it. And even he noted that there's programs across the world that has been used where they've used IVMT, and they've literally solved the pandemic in numerous regions across the world. I'm not going to go into all the detail because I've spoken to you guys about Merck & Co. and how Merck & Co. has actually moved from producing this product, manufacturing this product, which costs next to nothing, and they've now literally moved over and started producing products. Now, when I raise my eyebrows, my eyes go really big, and I say that word products, I'm sure you know which products I'm referring to. So they've sold out the people for profits. For profits. Pharmaceutical companies have been doing this forever. Absolutely forever. Dr. Urso, Richard Urso, mentioned how it was very clear to numerous doctors that if you used any of these unauthorized drugs, that you would be fired. He has treated more than 1,600 patients with these drugs at home because there were no treatments for inflammation, respiratory distress, or blood clotting. 1,600 patients, and they were all successfully treated. Dr. Ryan Cole then also turned around and he shared an amazing story of an individual who contacted him. 50-year-old, type 1 diabetic, obviously high risk, contacted him and said to him, I'm CV positive, I've got extreme chest pain, I'm on my way to the ER. Dr. Cole said to him, no, you are not on your way to the ER. You are going to the pharmacy, I'm phoning through a script. He got the medication, he went home, he started the medication. 6 hours later, he called Dr. Cole and he said to Dr. Cole, my pain level has gone from a 9 to a 2. Thank you. It's gone down to a 2. The next morning, he contacted Dr. Cole and his saturated oxygen levels the day before was 86. That following morning, it was 98. That's early treatment. That individual is Dr. Cole's brother. Now, you're going to take care of your family to the best of your ability. You are not going to give them a drug that is not going to be in their best interest. If that is not a story, what is? There's a website called myfreedoctor.com. Another gentleman was at the panel on Monday, and he mentioned that they have a success rate of 99.99% of helping CV-19 patients. 150,000 successful cases. Early treatment drugs. Early treatment drugs. So that's 17,000 in the United Kingdom. Can you only imagine what that number would have been if they used early treatment drugs? Can you imagine if they started using that in South Africa? I reckon those numbers would have come down even more. So another doctor, so many of them, another doctor mentioned as well how important it is to obviously find the correct doctor and the correct pharmacist. Now, I know that this is a huge problem in South Africa as well. I've had many people contact me when they are sick. A lot of people that I know as well, they don't even go and get tested because of the whole PCR situation. Rightfully so. Again, I can go into the whole PCR part, but guys, there's more than enough information. I don't need to repeat myself. And again, the info's there. So, and then they say to me, they don't know which doctor to go to. They don't know which doctor to go to. They don't know which pharmacist to go to. And they're petrified of going to a hospital. This is the situations we are sitting with. what do people do? Let's go back 10 years, 5 years. Your doctor used to be your go-to. Pharmacist used to be your go-to. Your hospital used to be your go-to. And now? Now you are sitting with these fears of what's going to happen? Are they going to treat me accordingly? For those that have not done enough research or who have not extensively looked into all of this information, and those that are still kind of looking into all of this and starting to question the narrative, for them it must be even worse, because they're going, what do I do? Can you only imagine how hard it must be? And then for those doctors and pharmacists who really want to help people, but can you imagine being a 60-year-old pharmacist who has done this your whole entire life, and you're sitting with that fear of, should it come out that I am filling a script of this item or that item, I will lose everything. So we need to take the human factor into play here. But this is why the unity comes into play. This is why the support structure comes into play. It is so vital. It is so vital that people speak up. It is so vital that people come together. Have to unify. We have to search for the truth. We have to speak about the truth. We have lost a lot of people due to a lack of clarity. Dr. McCullough has spoken about the 72-hour golden window period at the onset of CV, which is when early treatment should start. As we know, many deaths could have been avoided and can be avoided. We don't know what is lurking in the wings. We've already been told that in May, there might be another wave gracing us with its presence. I already saw that there's an OMI 0.2 popping up its head somewhere. So, golly gosh me, I would like one of those crystal balls as well. Anyone knows where I can get one, please let me know. But yes, so the point that's really important here is early treatment. Early treatment is vital. It is vital. And finding the correct doctor, the correct pharmacist that is willing to assist, getting those people to speak up, to form communities, that is what we should be focusing on. Because with all due respect, I cannot see the so-called powers that be. I can't see that they're going to be assisting us anytime soon. Because as you will hear in episodes to follow, it's not about the people. It's got nothing to do with us. The struggle that people are feeling, the confusion and dismay, am I doing the right thing? Have I made the right choice? These are all valid emotions. They are valid thoughts to have. Like I mentioned earlier, for years we thought milk gives us strong bones and teeth. We believed being a Hollywood star was the best profession ever. Squeaky clean, except for all of those naughty little ones that made the headlines every now and then, ended up in jail here and there for being a little bit rebellious. Little did we know. And we believed that weapons in war were only guns and bombs. Well, now, the British, and this is no disrespect to British people, so please, gave blankets contaminated with smallpox to the Native Americans and wiped out tribes of people to gain land. So bioweapons is not a new thing. They knew exactly what they were doing. Do you for 1 second think that if it worked back then, that they were not going to try and do something like that again? Maybe not contaminating blankets. I'm sure that it's evolved, and it clearly has evolved. But if they could do something like that back then, not necessarily the British either, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So just on that, smallpox had a mortality rate of 30%, and it killed millions, okay? Now, if you have a look at the history of smallpox, briefly, I don't want to get into it too much because some of you might actually start falling asleep, but smallpox has been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They actually found it, I think, in the 9th century. They found it in a mummy, one of the pharaohs. Yeah, in the 10th century, there was also a Chinese empress who managed to figure out that if you use the scabs of smallpox and you grind it up nicely and you blow it up somebody's nose, whew, that would be called a form of variolation, that would be a way of ensuring that that person would not get smallpox. Woohoo! We understand that as your body would obviously build an immunity against the smallpox, so to speak. Then we had Mr. Edward Jenner who came along. He came along in 1796. Now, prior to that, when he was still a child, he started realizing that so milkmaids had the most amazing skin because what they were doing is they were obviously milking the cow, and the cows would have these sores on their udders, and the milkmaids would have little cuts on their hands, and they would get cowpox. And with them getting cowpox, they would become immune to smallpox. So he first started seeing that when he was a young little boy. So he parked that information, but with him being as inquisitive as he was, and he was obviously inclined medically, so to speak, he started investigating that again at a later stage, and he found that by means of infecting someone with cowpox, you could actually get someone to be immune to smallpox. So, obviously, like I said, in 1796, they took a little boy, they took the pus from a cow's sore by means of variolation, cut open a little boy's sore, and then they put that cowpox into the little boy's ana, so to speak. And then they had a look, and the little boy got mild fever, but the mild fever passed. And then that is basically how, I don't want to say the word because of algorithms, but that is how that is how axation started. And he is actually seen as the father of immunization. So, first and foremost, the mortality rate with smallpox to smallpox was 30% mortality. Now, cowpox to smallpox was 3% mortality. However, because he went against the narrative, because he tried something different, he wrote this all up in his journals, and he submitted his papers to the medical board, so to speak, and they rejected it. Time and time and time again. And he had to submit it so many times, over and over and over and over and over again, until eventually they accepted it. Eventually. So how many people had to first die and go through all of these horrible things before they actually accepted it? So just for clarity, what we are dealing with today is gene therapy. Okay. What he did there was not pharmaceutically induced. Okay. So I admire what he was doing based on the little bit of information, which is rather extensive considering all the research that I've done, considering the information I have retrieved. However, whether all of this information is 100% accurate, I do not know, because I really don't trust history that much. So I do try to take it with a pinch of salt. But the information that I have put across to you, and the point that I'm trying to make out of the story that I've told you, is that he went against the narrative. They rejected it. People died because they wouldn't accept something different. That's the point I'm trying to make. So they will not receive these unauthorized drugs as valid treatments. All these people are dying. It's terribly unnecessary. Terribly unnecessary. So that's a little bit of history with regards to the father of immunization. It's very interesting. And with regards to these narratives that are pushed down, you know how they say trust the science? We've had that before in history as well. Guys, it's so important. It's so important to look at history, or at least to look at the history that the history they present to us, but to cross-reference what you find and then to go dig a little bit deeper. When I say dig a little bit deeper, do you know that you can actually find archives? There's archives, and in those archives, you find journals. And in those journals, you find letters and stuff as well of what people have actually written. And that's where you can find, I would say, a little bit more substantial history. I firmly believe in finding direct links. That to me is more important when it comes to history. Anywho, polio. Did you know what some of the treatments were for polio? Color red. They would wrap people in the color red and think that that would heal people from polio. And leeches. Leeches, I suppose, is still okay. Brain washout. They would do that too, where they would run IVs into little children's arms and wash them out with saltwater solutions, because they would think that the salt water would go into their brains, and then there would be all this liquid in their brains, and it would just wash all the viruses out. That's how they did that. And then, of course, the electric shock treatments as well. I don't think electric shock treatments on a 5-year-old would be good. Then there was the red hot poker, because they reckon that if you burn someone with a red hot poker, because of that pain, I don't know if they thought that it would scare the polio away, or if it would burn the polio out of their nervous system. I'm not quite sure how that one worked. In the 50s, 1960s, yes, they used cobra venom for polio on children. I wouldn't send my child for that treatment. But please, trust the science. Anywho, so that's just a little bit of history with regards to what we have been through. And this is how people have been treated across the years. But then it's important to look at the pharmaceutical companies and where they come in and how they come in and who they are working with. Guys, the truth is all there. It's all there. Another doctor spoke last night. He worked in an ICU. He had 7 critically ill CV-19 patients, and he was treating them with his protocol. Now, hospital management knew what type of treatments he was using. So all of a sudden, this memo goes out. In this memo, it says that all the physicians are allowed to administer remdesivir. Boy, oh boy, I can do a whole show on remdesivir and midazolam. So anyway, so it says that they can use remdesivir. Then on the second page, it says under no circumstances are they allowed to use IVMT, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. And ascorbic acid. Now, for those that don't know, ascorbic acid is vitamin C. So a lot of the other drugs on the list is also part of these early treatment drugs. So the doctor explains in the forum, he says he didn't know what to do because all he's ever done is treat CV-19 with these protocol drugs. He wasn't into the whole hospital protocols because he knew that it didn't work. So he was literally watching his patients die. One of them was a 31-year-old woman. This doctor started crying on the forum because all 7 of his patients died. Because he couldn't give his patients the care that he's always given his patients successfully. Because they just decided, no, not even vitamin C. And they died. Then they called him into what is called a peer sham review. They called him into a peer sham review. And they accused the doctor of 7 outrageous crimes that he had committed, that he was a severe threat. He was suspended of all his hospital privileges, ignoring the fact that even under his care, the mortality rate was only 50%, the same as the rest of his colleagues, but that didn't matter. And his medical career was ended. Wow. What are we missing? What are we missing? It's like a witch hunt. An ICU nurse in the Eastern Cape I've been chatting to for quite some time. I've mentioned to you guys about her already. I've mentioned to you guys a few times about her. She's absolutely amazing. She's such a sweetheart. For this, let's call her Sandra. She has been in the nursing industry for 30 years. She's admired, she works very well with others, and has a really good reputation, okay? She's the only staff member who has not been violated, call it that. Now, because of this, she's been treated unfairly. When she walks into a room, now I want you to please do me a favor, especially the females, because we do tend to be more sympathetic. No disrespect to the males, but the ladies would be able to feel this. When she walks into a room, everybody stops talking to her. They just keep quiet. No one talks. They don't say a word. People make horrible comments so that she can hear them, but they don't speak directly to her. She's been intimidated and called names. All her years of hard work, of being loyal, of being faithful, has all been washed down the drain like the contents of a bedpan. That's how she's being treated. So Sandra, due to her heavy, heavy heart, broken heart, okay, has been speaking out and supplying me with truly disturbing information. She's told me about an increase in absenteeism from violated staff members. Okay, so now she has to work longer hours and more shifts. She's told me about more patients per staff member due to lack of staff. So sometimes they are up to 4 or 5 beds per ICU staff nurse. Okay, an influx of patients, all violated. An increase in patients with bleeding on the brain and seizures, all violated, and an increase in HIV and TB patients, all violated. She sees these things. Now, yes, this could all just be hearsay. Everything I could say, these type of things, could all be hearsay. But I'm sure that in your heart of heart, you know that it's not. Because I'm sure you've heard stories like this already. So Sandra will now be finishing up at her place of employment really soon. Can't say exactly when, because that could also link you up to which type of establishment she's at, because she refuses to be violated. I'm proud of Sandra, but my heart aches for her. Now she's just, yeah, she doesn't matter anymore. And I have loads of stories like Sandra's. Okay, so then a military gentleman popped up on the panel. and attorney Thomas Renz. And he shared some amazing updated information. Guys, this information, I've been wanting to throw it onto my Telegram channel. I've really been wanting to throw it on, but I didn't want to spoil. I didn't want to spoil the information for the show because, wow, just wow. This is now going to court, okay, because of the numbers being so astronomical. This information is literally contradicting theirs. It's that bad. Whew. So please listen to this because this is just horrifying. And this goes hand in hand with what loads of doctors have been reporting. I want you to think about Dr. Christine Northrup. I want you to think about Dr. Ryan Cole. I want you to think about the information I gave you last year already on miscarriages. I want you to think about all the sports stars. I want you to think about the pilots and what's been happening with them. I want you to think about the children, okay? And I want you to think about the data that's still being withheld from us in South Africa when I read you this information. Whew. Miscarriages increased, okay, in the military. Now, this is information supplied by the Defense Medical Epidemiology Database. Okay. Miscarriages increased by almost 300%. It used to be 1,499 per year. That used to be the amount of miscarriages per year. In the first 10 months of 2021, it is now 4,182. Okay, that's miscarriages. And that's just in the military. Cancer increased by almost 300%. Just to put it into perspective, from 2016 until 2020, they had 38,700 cases of cancer per year. Granted, it's a huge amount. In the first 11 months of 2021, 114,645 cases of cancer. In the first 11 months of 2011. And apparently, according to this report, they're mostly young people. Neurological defects increased by almost 1,000%. And this affects the pilots, okay? 82,000 per year. It's now gone up to 863,000 per year. This is crazy. Like, these numbers don't even, it doesn't even make sense to me. Like, my first question is, how many soldiers are there? But this is not just your soldiers on the ground. We are talking Navy SEALs, we are talking the Air Force, we are talking the military, we are talking Pentagon, we are talking all of them. So this is all of them. Myocardial infarction, 269% increase. Bell's palsy, 291% increase. Congenital malformations for children of military personnel, 156% increase. Female infertility, 471% increase. Pulmonary embolisms, 467% increase. The DMED is quite literally a surveillance program designed for the express purpose of detecting surges in illness and injury to make sure the military is combat ready. It's about national security, more than public health. Okay, they have to make sure everyone is healthy. That's how it works, because else they can't send anybody. They can't send anybody out into the field. They can't send their guys out onto their ships, out onto their planes, out into, I don't know, are they still going to Russia? Ukraine? Are they still in Iraq somewhere? Are we still invading countries? How's Antarctica looking? So we know that's the United States of America. We know that they are present pretty much on every continent, in every country. Okay, so they are everywhere. And I should actually do a show about specifically these amounts and where are all these military personnel, because this is absolutely horrific, because this tells us that VES, what? SA VES hasn't even come close. The yellow card system, oh, really? I always say question everything. This needs to be questioned. They have clearly said, Thomas Renz have clearly said, look, he's an attorney and they are investigating this and this is going to court. They want answers. There's a clip with regards to this. There are numerous articles with regards to this. It's all, and it will all be on my Telegram channel. So you guys are more than welcome to subscribe to that. The link will be available on most of my platforms in any case. So you guys can go and have a look. This is not figures that are just being made up. This is happening. All of these things are happening. Now, what's happening in South Africa? Because we have injuries. We know this. You know people. And you know people who have had injuries. And what's scarier, well, more scary, how's my English today, is that this is not something that has just happened now. We have had product injuries for many, many, many years. People just haven't spoken about it that much. And those that have spoken about it, they've been silenced, or it's just been pushed under the carpet. It is very important that everyone understands that this is not over, but this is not hopeless. It is all important it's very important for everybody to understand how we perceive the situation that we are in. It is very important to understand whether we are going to take this information, turn it into something positive, and how we are going to dissect the information and move forward from it. We can't let history repeat itself. There's a reason why this is called the awakening. There's absolutely a reason for it. We are not crazy. We are not conspiracy theorists. If anything, we are conspiracy truthists. So join me again soon for the next show on Truth Be Told. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you once more for joining on Truth Be Told. Remember, every avenue is a possibility. Thanks, guys. Mwah.